We'll now call the first time for anyone in favor of the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. I see nobody coming forward. I will call for a second time for anybody in favor of the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. Again, I see no one coming forward. I will call for the first time anyone opposed to the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. Seeing none, I'll call for the second time for anyone opposed to the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. Again, I see no one. I will call for the first time anyone deemed affected by the proposed law to come forward and make a presentation. Seeing no one, I will call a second time anyone deemed affected by the proposed law to come forward and make a presentation. And I see no one coming forward. Okay, I'll ask for any comments or questions from the council members. Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to Planner Sloan. I think this is a good spot for this particular rezoning. And I know that we don't talk about specific developments at this point. I would just say if a development does come through, that's a pretty heavy traffic area, and just to bear in mind there should be extra diligent on ingress and egress, I would say. But other than that, it looks good.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from council? All right, seeing none, I'll ask the municipal land use planner to make any final statements or comments.
Thank you. There's nothing more from me. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So at 1:08, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 2026-21, land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment, closed at 1:08 p.m. So with that, we'll move on to the reading of the motions. And we'd like Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I make the motion that bylaw 2026-21 amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any questions or comments from council? All right, all those in favor? That is passed. Now for the Councillor Blatt.
Oops. Thank you, Mayor Daly. I move that bylaw 2026-21 amendment to land use bylaw 2024-2025-14 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is passed. Thank you very much for that. Moves us down to item number 4, business request of cancellation of tax penalties. To acting CAO Pedro to make introductions.
Good afternoon, Council. Here with us today is our Manager of Finance, Rebecca Fox. She will be speaking to the request for cancellation of tax penalties.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Before you today are 3 requests from property owners asking Council to consider waiving penalties applied to their 2026 property taxes. There's just been one update since the report was prepared. The outstanding taxes for roll 52133300 have now been paid in full, less the penalty as well. Administration has provided the background for each request in the report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sorry, could you repeat that roll number again, please?
52133300.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? Counselor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to, apologies, Fox. Has there ever been a grace period for tax roll, or has that ever been considered, or is it generally just June 30th and that's the end of the deal?
We go off the bylaw, which June 30th is the final date. Penalties are applied July 1st.
Any further questions or comments? Counselor Overwater?
Thank you, Mayor Daly. To Ms. Fox, so people could apply to, if they can't make the lump sum, we do have the opportunity for people to, make monthly payments, so it's easier for them. So is this something, this would be a lump sum payment that we're waiting for, so the option to that person or company that hasn't paid the taxes, have they been given that extra option to say, okay, I'm going to start making monthly payments?
So any resident or property owner can apply for that program, but they have to do it before June 30th. For these requests, all of them, except for the one that had just paid, it was a clerical error that happened, apparently. So it was just, they thought they had set it up to pay by June 30th, but they had not.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? All right, seeing none then, I'll ask for a motion here to move forward. Counselor Kirsch?
Move that council accepts the request for cancellation of tax penalties for roll number 4700500 as information.
Thank you. Any final comments or questions? Seeing none then, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you. That motion is passed. Now for the second, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. And I move that council accepts the request for cancellation of tax penalties for roll number 3329400, as well as 4501900, as well as 3822300 as information.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is passed as well. Thank you. And the last one, Councillor. Oh, there's still a penalty, is there not?
There is still a penalty.
Councillor Taylor?
I move that council accepts the request for cancellation of tax penalties for roll 5213300 as information.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is passed as well. Thank you very much for that. Moves down to 4.2, tax recovery sales and reserve bids. Ms. Fox, are you handling this one as well? Okay, turn it over to you.
Thank you. So at the time that this report was prepared, there was 4 properties that had reached the stage that they were required to be offered for public auction under the Municipal Government Act. Since then, their arrears for roll number 3902301 have been paid in full, so that property has been removed from the tax recovery process. That leaves 3 properties for council to establish the sales conditions and reserve bids for today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Councillor Kirsch?
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to Rebecca Fox. This is my first go around when we get to the point of the year where we make these types of decisions. And just for my own education and maybe the gallery, can you, when someone starts to get to the point where they haven't paid taxes in 2 or 3 years, can you give me a little bit of a brief on the process the town takes to try to get them into the positive and not get to the point where we have to go through the process that's stated in the MGA. Thank you.
Yes, so once a property is 2 years in arrears, they get monthly statements. As long as they're in arrears, they'll get a statement every month. But once they hit that 2 years in arrears, just before the end of the year, we'll send them a letter letting them know that, hey, you are 1 year in arrears right now. If you pay that before the end of the year, it'll stop us from having to potentially put a lien on next year. Because if it rolls over to January 1st, then they have to pay those 2 years of arrears so that they're good. Once that March 31st date rolls around, we do apply a lien to the property, and then they have a full year once that lien is applied to pay their arrears to stop the tax recovery process. At any point, they can go on a tax agreement, a maximum of 3 years, which there will still be penalties applied while they're on that agreement. And it bases the upcoming taxes as well, is rolled into that. So there is options for them, and they can make payments year-round as they need. And then once they're out of arrears, we do encourage them to go on our monthly tax payment program.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me, through you to the manager of finance. The RFD references establishing the reserve bid, or what we think is a bid close to market. And it references KCL Consulting having vetted or reviewed the setting of that, or those prices. Can you talk a little bit about the process that the town goes through to establish that market price? Or does KCL, as our assessor, do that? I'm just not sure what that process looks like. Thank you.
So I went through and looked at the current year's assessment, and then I went to KCL with my potential reserve bids. And right now, there's 2 land properties and 1 designated manufactured home. The land I reduced by 10% from the assessed value, and the designated manufactured home by 15%. And then I just went to KCL Consulting asking if they thought that was reasonable. They said yes. We don't know what the condition of the property is on the inside. We just know from the outside. And we want to make sure that we can recover those property taxes with also being fair to the property owner as well.
Supplemental.
Yes. Thank you. And so what happens if the properties don't sell? We retain ownership and become landlords then, or what does that process look like? Thank you.
So in the MGA, it does give the option for the town to take title. That is a process, and then we could potentially sell the property at a later date. But in the meantime, between us taking the title, the owner can still come in and pay those arrears and get out of that process before we take the title.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? No? Okay. So then we'll look to page 25 of our agenda and look for somebody to make a motion. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Do you want me to read this whole thing or just the? Okay, all right, perfect. I move that council establish the following terms and conditions for the tax recovery sale scheduled for Wednesday, October 28th, 2026 at 2 p.m. at the Town of Olds Council Chambers as follows, and the following numbers from 1 through 6. And then the second one as well, or are we going to do these as separate? Separate, okay.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on the first part of that motion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And now for the second part of that motion. Councillor Kirsch.
I move that council establish the following reserve bids for the tax recovery sale schedule for Wednesday, October 28th, 2026. Roll number 3215600, lot 32, block 5, plan 9912224 for $415,440. Should I continue to the next three? Okay. Roll number, gotta make this bigger. 3618900, lot 25, block 8, plan 7810900 for $181,620,000. Sorry, $181,620. Roll number 3902301.
Don't have to do that one. That one's got paid up.
Okay, thank you. Roll number 8000900, lot unit 9, block 1, plan 7710095 for $30,700.
Thank you, Councillor Kirsch. That's a lot of numbers to
Yeah.
get out there.
Need to give new
All right, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none then, ask the question. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much for that. So it takes us to 4.3, development permit. Acting CAO Director Pedro. Thank you, Mrs. Fox, for your presentation.
Thank you. Through the chair, I will pass this along to our planning supervisor, Kyle Sloan. He will be speaking to the development permit application for our development officer who is not here this week.
Thank you again. This first development permit is for a shed on a corner lot where the proposed shed would be nearer to the road, the side road, than the principal dwelling. The subject site is 4737 47th Street, which is in the traditional neighborhood or RTD district. Section 4.25 of the land use bylaw states that on corner parcels, accessory buildings and structures shall not be located closer to the side parcel boundary abutting a street than the principal building. The standard is intended to prevent detached garages from creating a secondary frontage with multiple accesses from a single parcel. As this is not a measurable standard, council is the development authority for this application. In this case, the proposed shed would be placed on skids and would be located within an existing fenced rear yard. The shed will also be located 1 meter from the property line, which exceeds the 0 meter setback that is typically applied in this district on non-corner lots. As it is located within the fenced yard, the proposed shed poses no functional difference to the streetscape, and therefore administration has no concerns with the proposed variance. This application was circulated to 7 adjacent landowners, and no comments have been received relating to this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the municipal planner. So you referenced administration's view is that it doesn't pose any issues with the streetscape. I assume that means everything from visibility, given that this is a corner lot approaching that intersection, to the aesthetics around neighbors. Again, I know it's a corner lot fronting or onto a street, but when you say no issue with streetscape, it encompasses all of those things and more? Thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair, that's exactly right. So part of the reason for this regulation on corner lots is for visibility for motorists, and in this case, this is a corner lot that also has lane access behind it. So these are things that we do want to consider. Given that this property is fully fenced and the shed is within that fence, there is no impact on visibility or sight triangles for the intersections. Which is why we don't have any concerns here.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask for somebody to make motion. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. I make the motion that council approve development permit PRMO-2026-0084, subject to the conditions outlined in the attached document.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? That passes unanimously as well. Thank you very much for that. Okay, it takes us down to development permit PRMO 2026-0093. Mr. Sloan?
Thank you again. This application is for a chicken coop and run for a backyard hens approval at 16 Birch Close in the Manufactured Home Park District. Backyard hens are a council discretionary use in this district. Typically, lots or homes in this land use district are within the manufactured home parks, but in this particular area, the Birch area, the lots are freehold titles, just like in any other residential district. So while the parks have less defined property lines, that's not the case here, and there are property lines in this area. The applicant will be required to separately obtain an animal license from municipal enforcement and abide by all relevant provisions of any municipal or other authority regulations. This approval only pertains to the development or the placement of the coop and the run, not for the hens themselves, as that is one of those separate approvals. This application was circulated to 16 adjacent landowners, and we have received no comments relating to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and to Mr. Sloan. Do we have a number of coops that were allotted for the town of Olds? Pardon my ignorance if I have not looked that up. But are we getting close to the allotted amount, or could you explain?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. When backyard hens first came in 2021, I believe, as part of that, there was multiple bylaws that were part of that. There was a cap placed of about, I think, 45 permits at that time, and then it was slated to grow with population growth as seen in the census, I guess. We have not come anywhere close to that initial cap even. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but we are, I think, fewer than a dozen approvals at this point throughout town.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daley, and through to Mr. Sloan. How is the backyard hen coop program going by your approximation? Do we get a lot of reported problems, noise complaints, any other points of friction on that? Thanks.
Thank you, and through the chair. I don't believe we receive very many complaints at all. I don't recall seeing any. In some cases, we may have received questions where people are questioning whether a permit was obtained, but as far as receiving complaints for the properties that have received approval for backyard hens, it's very uncommon.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the municipal planner. I recall when the town embarked down this path, 2019, 2020, maybe give or take a year or two, there was talk of requiring people with the hen coops to take a course, and I'm just wondering, is that still a requirement? And I didn't see it, maybe I overlooked it. We must have requirements around the humane treatment of the hens relative to heating structure and our mild winters that we always have. Thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair, yes, that is still part of the requirement for the other permits that are required for this process. So the courses are often online. We don't prescribe any specific course. We do allow applicants to be flexible and find a course that works for them. And I believe they have to at least let us know which one it is and demonstrate that they have taken it so that it can be vetted in some way. But yeah, none of those requirements have changed since this originally came in.
Thank you. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. To Mr. Sloan, when they clean out the coops, where are they supposed to take the feces and everything else that goes along with that? I mean, they can't just put it in their compost, do they? Or where do they put that? They don't put it in the garbage. Where does it go?
That's a fair question. I'm sure that's probably something outlined in this course. I'm not particularly familiar with the details, but no, it shouldn't be going in the compost.
Supplemental?
So when they apply for these permits, they must be told where, like how often they have to clean it out, like for smell, drainage that's going on to other people's property from it. So they must be told, whoever issues the permit must tell them exactly where they have to take this to, correct? Get back to me.
We'll have to look into that. Get back to you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, I'll look for somebody to make the motion then. Councillor Taylor,
Thanks, Mayor Daly. I move that council approve development permit PRMO-2026-0093, subject to the conditions outlined in the attached document.
thank you. Councillor Taylor. Any further comments or questions? I think we got all the bases covered, one end to the other. All right, all those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, takes us down to 4.5, Olds Housing Strategy Annual Report. And I'll turn it over to Acting CAO, Director Pedro.
Thank you again. I will again pass this over to our planning supervisor, Kyle Sloan, to walk us through.
Thank you again. So this is the annual report for the housing strategy adopted last year. And if we go to the first slide, or the next slide, I guess, I'll explain a bit of the background that led into the strategy. And that is, for the better part of a decade, we had slow growth, which was reflected in the last census, the 2021 census. And we weren't seeing very much variety in new housing coming in. It was almost entirely low density, single family and duplex. In 2024, and really even going back to a bit of 2023, we started to perceive that there was higher demand for housing than this growth would suggest. And we wanted to make some steps, or take some steps to better quantify what this demand was and understand how we can better meet that. So in 2023, we did a housing needs assessment, and then in 2025, we updated that in conjunction with developing this housing strategy. And what the results were in the strategy, if we go to the next slide, it outlines some objectives for the number of new dwellings that we would like to see by 2030, some objectives about housing variety, including what we would call missing middle units, which are townhome, row house, multiplexes, the mid-range density levels, because what we had seen, like it said, we had seen low density dwellings for a while, but anything that wasn't low density was quite large apartment style dwellings, whereas we weren't really seeing anything in between the missing middle, which is common enough that missing middle exists as a term across Canada and really in the US as well. This isn't unique to Olds, but it was a challenge that we were facing as well. And we also wanted to encourage population growth or meet the demand for the growth that we felt was there, that just wasn't, the housing industry wasn't meeting. there were goals for revitalization of Uptown Olds as a mixed-use community, and that goes back to the Uptown Olds area redevelopment plan that was adopted the decade previous. As well, we did identify many years in a row through surveys that we had very low rental vacancy in Olds, and we wanted to address that. So if we go to the next slide, now a few of these slides I will be repeating myself while looking at it with different visuals, just to kind of instill that the issues that we were seeing. So you can see we had quite low housing growth for a decade from 2015 on, and in the bottom pie chart, the lighter color that makes up 81% from 2015 to 2023. That is the low density housing types. And then in 2024 and 2025, that swung quite dramatically to where 2/3 of the new units in town were high density, largely from just two projects. There's the two apartment buildings. One is completed now and one is nearing completion. Those were approved in 24 and 25, so we saw that shift. Now in 2026, the majority of new housing starts this year have also been multifamily, but all of those starts, the multifamily starts in 2026 so far, this is through August 15th, have actually been in the missing middle, the smaller developments, 5-plexes, 3-plexes, 4. So we've seen a shift that is promising to try to develop that greater variety that we've been seeking. If we go to the next slide, since 2023, we have seen a number of new developers enter the market, either already developing and already constructing homes. Some are at the process of obtaining land for developments that we expect to come soon, and some are still searching for land but very interested in working in Olds. We've also initiated some incentives in recent years for low-density developments with subdivisions that create 7 lots or more, as well as high-density development incentives. So since 2023, the total value of these incentives, which are in the form of tax abatement, has been $137,000. But the total increase in assessment for the parcels related to those incentives, and I will correct the number there, it's not 35 million, but the incentive or the assessment increase is just under 33 million. That 35 million included 2 non-residential developments, and that's not what I'm trying to speak to here, so just a minor correction. To go to the next slide, I'll go back to the missing middle. It is still a continued gap that we feel there's not enough of in Olds. I did speak to 2026 having some promising trends in that. So of the 260 new housing units that were built in Olds or that began construction in Olds in 2024 and 25, only 6 of those 260 were part of that missing middle. The rest were the low or the high density, not in between. For a full decade, from 2015 to 2025, we only saw 11 new missing middle units built in town. And so far, to start this year, we have 26 under construction right now. So certainly have seen a shift. I will say one thing when it comes to smaller communities and statistics like this, shifts can seem dramatic just because, we aren't seeing 50,000 new homes or anything like that. So one apartment building can completely shift what the stats look like. So it is better to look at multiple years to detect trends rather than single year shifts, but that it's still 2026 is off to a good start for providing more variety of housing. But we do still want to see low density housing as well. single-family homes are the most popular dwelling type in Olds and in Canada for a reason. It's a desirable type of housing that people want. One thing we would like to see more of in town is single-family homes that are available for sale for below $500,000. Last week, when I put these numbers together, of the 47 listings I saw, only 10 of the detached dwellings listed were below this, and most of these were quite old and smaller dwellings, but none of the new builds were below 500,000 or really anywhere close to it. So that is still a gap that we certainly see, and there's still work to be done to encourage more entry-level housing to be built. Seniors housing was identified as well in the housing strategy as an area that we would like to see more of. This is quite a specific type of development, so it might take some time to come to fruition, but it's still something we are trying to encourage more of. It takes specific developers to do this. It's not the types that are just building homes for sale or rent. Usually it's a different type of organization that would target seniors housing. Finally, I will spend a few slides looking forward to the rest of this year and the next couple to just identify some housing development that is underway or that we expect to get underway soon. So there's a few on the shorter term here. There's an apartment building that I mentioned nearing construction or nearing completion. We do anticipate there may be another larger scale development in the near future that would potentially bring another 100 units or so rental units to the market. There are other developments. We recently saw a rezoning on 65th Avenue that they are still working forward and hoping to begin development for 60 townhome and lower density units as well, some duplexes and things. We've seen the beginning of what we call the Larchwoods Manufactured Home Park. Just in the past couple of weeks, they have started to move units into that development south of the ORE, south of Uptown. As well, I'll go back again to Missing Middle. All of the 26 Missing Middle housing starts that we've seen this year have been in East Olds. It is absolutely a site of change. And we are seeing a lot of redevelopment in that area of town. We do expect we will continue to see more. And as you, I'm sure, are aware, we do plan to revisit the East Olds area redevelopment plan as well to make sure that that change that we're seeing continues or better meets the vision that residents of that area have and that the town wants to see. Miller Meadows we have heard about for many years, but we do think we are closer to seeing some development taking place there. There is some engineering design work underway to get started on that site. Looking a little bit farther out into the next few years, on the next slide we have some vacant lots in the Uptown area and the old provincial building that is potentially as candidate for redevelopment into a residential building. And then in our communities such as Vistas and Highlands on the north and southwest side of town respectively, we've recently, we currently have a subdivision application in Vistas that would create 74 single family and duplex parcels. As well, we expect we are soon to see applications for the next phases of the Highlands that would be medium or high density developments down there. And then the Long Sky lands, also known as the Cornerstone Area Structure Plan. This is the area north of the Cornerstone commercial area around Rotary Park. There's soon to be some developable land available for sale there that we hope can encourage more areas of new development. Beyond that, looking a little bit farther, we're hearing about some other area structure plans that have been approved quite a while ago, but may be seeing their initial phases getting started within the next few years. There's a bit more movement on some of those. As well, in the No Frills area, the West Olds lands, the 67th Avenue extension would unlock some land for redevelopment there. And we're working on some policies to encourage more brownfield redevelopment. We do have some significant sites in town, largely along Highway 27, that have been vacant for a number of years. Some may be in need of remediation, and that is potentially what's holding up redevelopment, and we're hoping to work on some policies that can address that. So finally, going back to our progress to date, this strategy was adopted only a year ago, and we are almost halfway to our 2030 target of 620 houses. We've had over 300 housing starts since then. We have had 160 rental units, either online or coming online soon. We have had uptake in development incentives. We've had new developers entering the market. And again, the missing middle has picked up this year. So I will leave it at that, and I will take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Sloan. I'll go to Councillor Overwater first and then Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. And to Mr. Sloan, when you're talking about the missing senior housing development, are you thinking more like Harvest and Encore, or are you thinking more like seniors that move into like the Meadows, a gated community, so that they don't have to mow the grass and shovel the snow? Are you looking for developers more in that area, or is it more the Encore and Harvest type?
Thank you for the question. And through the chair, I would say both. There's certainly, I believe, we would like to see more of the structured seniors housing where there's maybe staff on site, maybe it's assisted living or something like that. But there's also seniors who want a greater level of independence, and they would lean more towards the latter that you say. So we do have some developments. I know when the developer who was rezoning the 65th Avenue site was here in Chambers, they were speaking to that maybe being one of their target markets, was seniors seeking that sort of independence where it's still their own home, but there's more community amenities, maybe less upkeep for themselves. And so it is a bit of both that we would like to see.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Municipal Planner Sloan. It's mentioned that we have many new developers that are expressing interest in Olds. Have they been forthcoming to you in administration as to why they're choosing Olds as to where they want to build?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, in some ways, yes. Some are seeing the numbers that we put out. For instance, when we were saying that we had, I think 2 years ago now, we were saying we had 0.6% rental vacancy. That was a number that some of the developers noticed when they came in to build the apartment building, the purpose-built rentals. So they were interested in that number. I think some are seeing maybe real estate listings and seeing the price of houses and understanding that there is demand here. It's a market they would like to get into for building for sale. There are also others coming from other communities that just see that there aren't that many active developers here and that there's land available, and it's a market that they would like to get into to find an entry point, but then to grow their presence here as well.
You good? Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to our Municipal Planner Sloan. Why do you suspect that we're not attracting developers to build that below $500,000 mark homes? I mean, we used to have Laban builders, And they built quite a few of those types of homes, great starter homes, great for people, you know, young professionals, younger families trying to have purchased their own homes. So I'm assuming we're actively pursuing those types of developers and maybe currently trying to encourage some of our in-town developers to also start building those types of homes. Can you just kind of enlighten me a little as to what the process is looking like or how we can do that?
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, I think it is challenging for developers to hit that price. I think the cost of development, so if it's a greenfield development, they're putting in the pipes, the roads, and all of those, and those costs are very high right now. So it's challenging for them to meet that price point when they are, because we're seeing a number of different builders in those areas, and there are a range of houses, but they are still all over that mark. It might not be possible with the combination of development costs, but also maybe land costs in Olds. It might not be possible for single-family homes to get below that range. But at the same time, then we would still certainly welcome seeing more semi-detached duplex development that might be able to hit that, where people can still buy a home, have a front door, have a backyard for under that threshold. So I'm not too sure exactly what all the reasons are, but I think there's plenty of factors.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daly, and through to Mr. Sloan. Apologies to Councillor Blatz. This question is very similar to hers. Was there some conditions that were made favorable for places like Destiny Place, Destination Place to come to fruition? Like, that seems like that kind of housing that could be pursued. I'm just curious, what were the conditions, or do we know what levers were pulled to make that happen? Thanks.
Thank you. Great question. And through the chair, I think when that was developed, it didn't really fit into our traditional land use districts of the time. Those lots were narrower than we would allow. Some of those parcels have zero lot line on the one side. So they were able to just get smaller lots. Now, with the new land use bylaw that was adopted last fall, our districts, particularly the RTD or traditional neighborhood district, is less restrictive on lot sizes. We do have slightly narrower setbacks than we used to, 1.2 meters versus 1.5 under the previous bylaw. So that could potentially mean lots are smaller. And then the mixed-use node district that seems to be quite popular with landowners and developers in rezoning too, to allow for more townhome or row house style development. But it also does allow single family, just again under smaller sizes. So I think, yes, there were specific things. That area was a direct control district, or actually two different direct control districts at the time, because it didn't meet our bylaws. But now our bylaws would allow more developments like that to take place in our regular districts.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the municipal planner. Just a comment, and if you wish to comment on my comment, certainly go ahead, but it's a telling number, the assessment value of 33 or 35 to 33 million. But I think more important is the number at the end of that, which is the tax revenue. And if my math was right, based on 35 million, it's about $200,000, I think, into the town on an annual basis. And the tax incentive is not evergreen, right? It's for a finite period of time, whatever, a year or two. But again, to me, a telling stat is the 35 or 33 million with our residential tax rate and what that does to our tax revenue. And my question is, can you talk a little bit about the future needs assessment? I assume that means another survey, because the landscape is ever changing. The international and foreign student pressure that we had 2 or 3 years ago is abated, maybe replaced with pressure from local students or North American, Canadian students. But it seems to me it's a fine line we try and walk right around the absorption rate for new builds that comes in, particularly the higher density. I'm not sure if we follow the, if you build it, they will come philosophy in terms of people coming to town, but how do we go through and assess where we're basically in a balanced or equilibrium market, and maybe we pause build, or do we just build, and eventually it'll all sort out? Sorry for the long-winded question.
Thank you. If I forget to come back to any of that, please remind me. But through the chair, yes, there are two different incentive streams. There's the low-density one, like I mentioned, that applies when there's a subdivision that creates more than 7 lots. Now that incentive applies to the unsold lots, but once they're sold to a home builder, then we do get tax revenue again. So I think that helps the land developers feel a little more comfortable with creating more lots, and understanding they do have a few years to make the sale to a builder, and not be stuck with the taxes right away. So that the new subdivision of 74 lots, I don't know the last time we saw a subdivision that large, but I think it was probably close to 20 years ago in the early years of the Vistas and Highlands developments. Most subdivisions we've been seeing in the last few years are more in the 20 to 30 lot range. The high density ones, yes, those are based on the added value or the cost of the improvement to the land, and those are a shorter time frame one to encourage that to be built. But then once it's there, within a couple of years or a few years, we do start seeing significantly better tax revenue from that than we did from the vacant land. So, and then as far as the future needs assessment, I agree that these housing needs assessments are something we should be updating with regularity, because they are a snapshot in time. And like you say, things do change significantly year over year. So it's always good to make sure, when developers were coming to us in 2023, they were asking information about demand, and we were basically telling them what we thought we felt the demand was. But these needs assessments can more quantifiably show them numbers and say, there is demand here. And we've had an assessment done that shows that. We've done surveys that show that. And then they are more comfortable coming in and developing that land.
Okay. Councillor Kirsch?
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to Planner Sloan. One quick question. The missing middle, what's the threshold that goes from single family? I guess it'd be 2, but where does it turn into high density from the missing middle? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. There's no set definition. I believe the housing strategy might have a definition in it for what that is, but different communities, it means something different. It's probably a lower threshold here because we don't see the levels of density or the sizes of development that larger cities would. But in our cases, we're mostly referring to, I would say, 8plexes and smaller down to 3plexes. Row houses kind of fit into that, even though they can be single dwellings on a lot. There's just so many more lots in a certain space, so row houses kind of do fit that missing middle definition for us. So you have the single detached and semi-detached or duplexes that would be lower density than that, and then I would say any apartment 10 units or larger probably doesn't fit into that either for us, because a 10 or 12 unit apartment in Olds is a fairly significant development. So I would say that is high density for our terms.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Good, and then I'll ask for somebody to make the motion. Councillor Kirsch?
Thank you, Mayor Daly. I move that Council accepts the Housing Strategy 2026 Annual Update Report for information.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? And that is passed. Thank you very much. So that takes us down to 4.6, Policy 113C, Public at Large Appointments, Update on Boards and Committees. I turn it over to Acting CEO Director Pedro.
Thank you, and I will actually pass this over to our legislative clerk to walk us through the new Policy 113C.
Thank you, and through the chair. So first, I guess I will identify that there was a small error. I've got 23 and 24 in the bylaw, attachment 3 and 4 mixed up, so we'll get that fixed. As well as, if you look right here, apparently I have 4 seats for the policing, and it's only 4 with 1 being a counselor, so that's where the 5 came in, so apologies for that. As we start to do our annual call out for the boards, committees, and commissions, we've modernized our policy 113, as well as our bylaws for each of the 4 committees to include the, Access to Information and the Protection of Privacy Act. Those are included in here, and we'll be bringing the 4 bylaws back to council for final approval and consideration, I guess, and final approval on September 14th. There's not many changes, just some consistency in formatting in most of those. The other thing we've addressed in here is our council appointments, that we will continue with the 2-year cycle that council chose last October. And I've asked for any input from anybody, and we'll be collecting that right up until that October org meeting, and would look to you guys to tell us what's working and not working in your committees. And the last thing was our public recruitment. We'll go live with it on the website. It'll be in the newspaper tomorrow for those call outs that are out there for the citizens to apply. We've updated our application as well to include the new ATIA and POPA standards. And we've also done a recruitment notice for the policing, because there's definitely more steps regarding that. Citizens will really quickly will apply to us through the board application, and then we'll give them further information on how they need to send in their security clearances to the government. We'll advise the government that has happened after you guys make your appointments on whoever you're going to put forward. The committee will run until we get all the approvals. Once all the approvals come back in, then the committee can go full steam ahead, and we will continue with appointments with the government in that way. Policy 113C and the procedure definitely got changed a lot to include how I actually do it compared to what it was before. And our procedural bylaw review
We did find it as was, so discussion on we've done on other policies, but that one in particular, but as fit for purpose. That's all.
Thank you. All right. Is there any questions or comments from council? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the legislative coordinator. And you can yell at me. Can you tell me what the alpha, remind me what the alpha scale is on the attachment 1 council, board, committee, commissions, 2-year cycle with the A, B, C, D, E, F? Is there any significance to that, or is it just an alpha scale? Thank you.
Sorry, I had to look at it again. I believe the ABCs are you, the counselors, right? That's how we weighed it out? That's right? That's what you're asking? Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? And this is going to be brought back to us on the 14th, is that correct?
Today, if I could get council approval on 113C, it will advance my call outs for the annual public recruitment. And then the bylaws I'll bring back to the 14th, and they could be approved then in advance of us making any appointments to those committees.
Perfect, thank you. All right. So any other comments, questions? Okay, Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that council approve policy 113C, public at large appointments as presented, and direct administration to bring forward the draft committee bylaws to a future council meeting for consideration.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is passed. Thank you very much. So now we move down to page 61. Do we need to make as per information? We're on page 61 for information now? Yep. Yep. Okay. Is there any questions or comments on our council board meetings, committees, and commissions reports? Okay, seeing none then. Councillor Taylor?
Thanks, Mayor Daley. I move that the reports from council boards and committees and commissions ending August 24th, 2026 be received for information.
Thank you. Last chance for comments or questions. Seeing none, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I'm just looking at your report. You attended the Mid-Sized Town Mayors Caucus virtually. Was there any discussion on basically data centers? How was the conversation amongst the mayors, and were they just as frustrated?
Sorry.
In that meeting?
So in that meeting, going from memory, the Minister Williams was in attendance, and he briefed the towns and villages on different ways of financing our towns moving forward outside of the normal tax regime that is in place right now. He talked about different methods which I could not grasp onto too much, but selling stocks in your town, bonds, all sorts of stuff. And I didn't understand exactly how we would do that, but anyway. And then there was no talk of data centers whatsoever in that one. That was mostly all about our LGFF funding and how that's been cut almost in half with everybody that was in the meeting. And that was a big concern of how people were making ends meet in those communities across Alberta. And that was the main gist of the meeting, was really that. It was about 45 minutes long, and Minister Williams took up about half an hour of that. So, yeah. No, that's okay. That's good. Okay. Any other questions on that? All right. Do we have a motion on that? Yeah, we do. All right. All those in favor then? And that is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. So that takes us down to item number 6, correspondence and information. So you can see there that we've got that laid out in a separate file. Is there any questions or comments on that? Okay. So then I'll need a motion. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and I move that the correspondence and information report ending August 24th, 2026 be received for information.
Thank you. Councillor Cook. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? That is passed as well. Thank you very much. And that takes us down to adjournment. And so I would like to call adjournment at 2:09. And thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Council. Great discussion today.